We put an incredible amount of trust in healthcare professionals. We literally put our lives in their hands. But what happens when that trust is betrayed in the absolute worst way possible? Today, we're going to dig into the chilling reality of medical murder, where the very people meant to heal become killers.
Okay, let's start with just a number. 35. It's stark, right? It just sits there. But what does it actually represent?
Well, that is the estimated number of Americans killed by a healthcare worker every single year. And here's the truly terrifying part, that the real number is probably way, way higher, because these kinds of crimes can go completely unnoticed for years.
So, what exactly are we talking about here? Medical murder, as you can see, is when a healthcare professional uses their special knowledge and that position of trust we give them to intentionally kill someone. To really understand how this can even happen, we're going to break down two recent and pretty shocking cases from opposite sides of the world.
All right, first up, let's head to Pennsylvania and talk about Heather Presty, a nurse whose career path was basically just one giant trail of red flags.
Let's just walk through this timeline for a second. After a long career as a vet tech, she gets her nursing degree in 2018. And then, this is where it gets wild. In the 5 years between 2018 and her arrest in 2023, she worked at 12 different nursing facilities. 12! I mean, that much job hopping is a massive alarm bell. It just screams that she's either getting fired or skipping out right before people figure out what's going on.
And you know what? It wasn't just the job hopping. The alarms were blaring everywhere. She was formally investigated for abusive behavior. She was disciplined for insulin errors, the exact weapon she would later use to kill. A supervisor even flat out told investigators she was worried Presty was harming residents. And yet, she kept getting hired, even using a relative's phone number to fake references. How does that happen?
Her method was just chillingly calculated. She knew how to exploit the system's weaknesses. She chose the night shift, right? A time with low staffing, less supervision, the perfect cover to give patients lethal doses of insulin, knowing that any medical emergency that followed would seem a lot less suspicious.
When investigators got a hold of her phone, they found a ton of disturbing text messages. In this first one, sent to her own mother, she's not worried about a patient's well-being, she's just annoyed that he's still awake after she'd already drugged him.
And her violent thoughts weren't just about the patients. She texted her mom, "I'm gonna murder my aides." It just shows this deep-seated rage that she had for pretty much everyone around her.
But this one is maybe the most direct and horrifying. She's complaining about a resident who was, in her words, driving me nuts, and she just texts, "But I may kill this resident." The casual way she says it, it's absolutely bone-chilling.
And this is where you see the huge disconnect. In court, her defense tried to paint this picture of her as some kind of mercy killer, that she truly believed she was ending her patient's suffering. But her own words, her own texts, tell a completely different story. This wasn't about mercy. It was about annoyance, irritation, and cold-blooded intent.
And of course, the human cost in all of this is just immeasurable. Elizabeth Simons Ozella, whose mother was one of the victims, put it perfectly. She played God when she didn't have that right.
So, in the end, Heather Presty took a plea deal to get the death penalty off the table. She pleaded guilty to 3 murders and a whole bunch of attempted murders. The result? 3 consecutive life sentences, plus another 380 to 760 years. She is never getting out of prison.
Okay, now let's travel halfway around the world to Australia, where the case of another nurse, Megan Haines, shows a pattern that is just disturbingly familiar.
So if you thought Presty's record was alarming, take a look at this. Haines was found guilty of professional misconduct in 2007. Her nursing license was suspended in 2008. Then she was found guilty of misconduct again in 2011. There were even allegations that she was drugging patients with insulin so she could steal their jewelry. So the question is, how on earth was she ever allowed to practice nursing again? In this case, the motive was crystal clear: pure retaliation. On the night of the murders, Haines had just been told that 2 residents, Marie Dara and Isabella Spencer, had filed formal complaints about her cruel behavior. And you want to know what the complaint was that cost Isabella Spencer her life? She reported that Haines had refused to help her to the bathroom and just callously told her to piss in her pad. That was it. Standing up for her own basic human dignity is what signed her death warrant. And this quote right here, this is the smoking gun. Years before the murders, way back in 2009, she's just casually telling a former partner how she'd get away with killing someone. She knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't a snap decision. It was a premeditated plan she'd been sitting on for years.
So let's pull back for a second. We've got two nurses, two different countries, but one horrifying pattern. It's time to connect the dots.
Just look at this comparison. The weapon of choice, insulin. It's easy to get your hands on and hard to detect. The opportunity, the night shift, isolated, low staffing. Both had massive red flags in their professional history that were somehow completely overlooked. And while their motives might look different on paper, the end result was exactly the same: murder under the guise of care.
Ultimately, what these stories show us is that these weren't just the actions of two rogue individuals. They represent a catastrophic failure of the system, a failure to listen to the warnings, a failure for facilities to communicate with each other, and a failure to protect the most vulnerable people in our society. It forces us to ask, why are these red flags so often missed? And how many others are slipping through the cracks right now? And that really just leaves us with a deeply unsettling question. We trust these institutions with our loved ones, believing they're in safe hands. But when the caregivers themselves become the killers, it forces all of us to ask, who is guarding the guardians?